Welcome back to another episode of the Main Quest podcast. This is, of course, the #1 retro gaming podcast that puts the silicon back in silicone. This is episode 98 of the Main Quest, and I am your host, Keith. Thanks for checking the show out, and if you would like more episodes, like the one Tony G and I did on Boyfriend Dungeon, consider joining many others on the Patreon feed. There's only 2 tiers to pick from. The old model I had was a little too convoluted, even for me. So you'll get stuff at $1 and even more for $3. Links to the Patreon and many other things are in the show notes, of course. Speaking of, last month, I had my first Patreon poll between Ninja Gaiden, Castlevania, Symphony of the Night, Prey, the 2017 game, and Kingdom Hearts. And Symphony of the Night won by a landslide. It wasn't even close. That episode will be dropping on the Patreon feed in April because, of course, it's going to be Player versus Podcast month. Couldn't be a better time to put that one out since the patrons voted on it, which is just one of the other perks of joining the Patreon. And since I said Kingdom Hearts, I mean Kingdom Hearts is also part of Listener Request Month there, which was included in the pool by a patron. So those Patreon bucks, they're not going to waste when you sign up. What else do I have to shill up top here that most of you will surely skip? Rate and review the show wherever you get it. Doesn't take that much time at all. You don't even need to leave a comment, but I do enjoy reading what you guys have to say. And if you have left a review, thank you, first of all. But also, I don't know, maybe then go tell a friend who likes this kind of stuff. It's greatly appreciated. Finally, I haven't talked about Solid Boys yet. I've had the great honor to be invited to co-host a Metal Gear podcast over on the Novel Console feed. It's me, Chris, Eric, and Thrak playing and discussing all of the canon Metal Gear entries. The introductory episode is already out, and by the time you're listening to this, the episode on Metal Gear for the MSX should be live or will be releasing shortly. If you enjoyed the Resident Evil stuff that I did on this feed, you're going to enjoy Solid Boys. It's my stepsister podcast. It's always getting caught in the dryer. And you know me, I just can't resist entering another podcast. Anyway, last year, Leathco reached out to me and asked if I could talk about Final Fantasy VII on Afterglow. And I said, buddy, you don't have enough terabytes to contain a conversation with me about Final Fantasy VII. He doubled down. We did the damn thing, and it was a great time and one of the best distractions that I could have asked for at that time. I was literally recording that entire episode in the closet of an Airbnb. So, of course, I extended an invitation to him, a little less of an enticing invitation, as things tend to go with the games that I have to cover over here. But Leathco obliged. He said to me, let's do Vectorman, and here we are. Donkey Kong Country fans, this is your warning. Hit the music. Did I miss something in my research? Did something political happen about Vectorman?
No, this is just a great look into the future if we keep going the way we are. Oh, humans had to leave the planet because we screwed it all up.
Yeah, as a part of the story, I mean, we'll get into it, that it's been invaded by, sludge or something like that.
Oh, was that part of the story? I thought it was humans screwed up the planet, so they had to leave it and left all these bugs to clean it.
Yeah, it was it got infected with the humans created I don't know if they literally mean sludge or if it's some sort of verb for something else in the Vectorman world. I don't know.
I didn't even take into account that. I figured they trashed the planet.
Well, since we're already recording and I'm probably going to keep a lot of this stuff in, it's go time.
Sweet.
And as everybody can hear, I am being joined by intergalactic retro gaming enthusiast who's here to clean up this podcast, not the planet Earth. He's here to clean up my podcast.
Well, you say clean up, but I do want to specify, since you've come back, you've had people from Secret Levels come on. You've had people from Retro Hangover on. I feel like you've had a good run, and then you got to me, and that's where the downslide begins.
Oh, so you're saying I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel. It's funny because I think Soups said the exact same thing on the last episode.
Oh, he's much more articulate than I am, though.
He is the host of the Afterglow and Grimglow podcasts. Welcome to the show, Leathco. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Been a little bit. Enjoyed you coming on the Afterglow. Glad I could return my favor. Glad to see the podcast back.
Yeah, as soon as we were done talking about Final Fantasy VII on your podcast, I always kind of had, I mostly have an open door to anybody who wants to come on. But for sure, I wanted to repay the favor, and because I had a ton of fun just gushing about that game, even though probably nothing that I said made any type of sense. But it's kind of what happens when you're just gushing about a game you really like.
Oh no, it's such a fantastic game. I to this day I'll replay it every year or two.
Yeah, and it's something I don't often get to do on my own podcast because I'm finding out I kind of had bad taste in video games. We'll see how I feel at the end of this episode. But before we talk about Vectorman specifically, we got to talk about you.
Hell no.
So, I find it interesting because you and I both share very similar premises in regards to how our shows are formatted, because you are basically covering games that you played growing up and talking about them now. I guess what I want to know is just kind of in a nutshell, what does your gaming history look like? And I guess what are some of your more formative gaming memories?
Well, I started out with an Atari 2600 on a black and white TV back when the NES was first started launching. I had the Atari for a bit, so I grew up on stuff like Asteroids and Pitfall, the awful conversion to Pac-Man that was on it. Then my parents, literally unexpectedly got me an NES. And they got me a color TV at the same time I got the NES for my bedroom. And it was something they had gotten me for babysitting my sister. And I got addicted to Super Mario Brothers on it. It felt like a huge step up from the Atari. I remember the first game I got for it that didn't come with it was Joust, followed by Dragon Warrior. Had that system for a long, long time. Got a Sega Genesis for a little bit. Only had a few games for it. Had some stuff come up to where I had to get rid of it. Long story short, they attempted a rent-to-own place to get the Genesis and discovered the amount they were going to pay in. It's a lot cheaper just to go buy one, obviously. So jumped to the Super and then got another Sega Genesis. Got the 32X for the Sega. And then the first console I actually ever bought with my own money was the PlayStation 1. Got it mowing yards, and I had a huge collection from that thing eventually. I think at the end I owned probably 150 games.
I just want to go back to the fact that you owned the 32X. I feel like we are brothers in arms. I don't know if we should be proud of having owned a 32X, but
oh well, let's go back to that one, man. I bought the 32X at a yard sale for $5 while at the very end of the death throes of it. And I got a copy of Doom with it. And that's the only game I could ever find for it.
That's actually not a terrible version of Doom. Also, $5 is an appropriate price for the 32X, even back then.
But, now that I can go back and actually play all the other games that came out for it, I'm kind of bummed out. I'm man, I wish I could have played some of these whenever I had the thing in the first place. That I could have found some of these, because there's some of them I enjoy. I know the 32X gets a horrible rap.
Yeah, the games that are on it they're not terrible. It's just Sega didn't support it long enough.
Yeah, there's some good stuff on it. Of course, the Star Wars arcade was good.
Right.
I'm a big wrestling fan, so the fact that WWF Raw got ported on it was awesome. The version of Virtua Fighter on it, again, not bad. I'm a huge Star Trek guy, so whenever I saw there's a Star Trek game on it, I'm like, yes, we gotta go play it. But yeah, I had a few games I really enjoyed.
And then jumping further back in what you're talking about, owning the Atari and then the jump to the NES. So I had an Atari when I was a kid, but I was just like a little bit too young to remember it. So for my other show that I'm doing on the Patreon, I was playing Launch 2600. We didn't own a 5200, but I was playing Launch 2600 and Launch 5200 games for that show for the first time. And first of all, Atari games are old. But I definitely have an appreciation for them now, thinking back to like the NES. Like I grew up on the NES. It's like the first console I really remember playing. Kind of, I guess I've just taken the Atari generation for granted because some of those games are like good. I mean, they are like, if you're going strictly for gameplay, like it's Atari, but like as far as presentation, like you're not getting much out of it. You really have to use your imagination. And the NES was like the first time where you didn't really have to use your imagination anymore, which is, it sounds quaint now, right? But that that chasm is vast when you actually think about it.
Well, whenever you put yourself in the time, the Atari 2600 was a crazy good console. Like the fact that you can play Space Invaders at home. You can play Missile Command at home. It was a shocking that we got like ports of those games that overall were not bad compared to the actual original arcade versions. And even today, everyone knocks CT, right? Everyone knocks CT in that system. If you actually go back and take the time to learn it and play it, it's not that bad of a game. And I feel like a lot of the reason why ET is considered what killed the Atari is the release of ET had been built up so much, there's no way that game was ever going to live up to the hype.
Well, I also think there was a series of events that led up to a ET, right?
Yeah.
Like Atari was making way too many video games. Like the market was way oversaturated. So
before ET, the Pac-Man the port of Pac-Man was pitiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a slew of other problems prior to ET that kind of led to everybody just becoming completely disinterested in the industry. And it's the same way people like look at the Saturn and they're like, yeah, the Saturn killed Sega. Well, technically you're right, but that's only like a very small part of the reason why Sega was in such a downward trajectory in the late 90s.
Yeah, like in my opinion, Sega of Japan killed Sega.
I mean, it took them a long time, but they've righted the ship at this point. But anyway, sorry you kind of like derailed your story here. So
no, you're good, even though I can't remember where I was at.
So I think you were talking about the PlayStation.
Okay, so if I was at the PlayStation, I had a large collection for it. But my sister had loaned out a bunch of my games without me realizing. So I went one day, I'm saving up for the PlayStation 2, and I opened up one of my cases, and the game's gone. So I lost about, let's say, 20% of my collection due to her loaning games out that she never got back, so I never got back. And it frustrated me so much, I said, screw it, I'm just going to go buy an Xbox. So that's why I jumped into the Xbox, and then I had the Wii shortly after getting married, and then I got the 360 before I more or less transitioned mostly over to PC and just getting a console every once in a while, like the Series X I had for a bit, and I have the Switch. But other than that, since it's been most PC.
And then I have to ask, because I have to ask this to all first-time guests, what is your favorite game of all time?
Chrono Trigger. Bar none. I'm a huge turn-based RPG guy to begin with, so the Super Nintendo and the PlayStation 1 are like my favorite consoles for those games. But just the combination of the storyline, the gameplay mechanics, and the fact that it's a role-playing game, it doesn't overstay its welcome. You're not getting into this 40, 80, 120-hour like dedicating a huge chunk of your life to this game, you can run through Chrono Trigger in 12 hours. Like for me, it's almost like the perfect way to do a turn-based RPG for someone that just wants a good story, good gameplay, but you don't want to spend forever in this game. It's like eating a really, really good high-end steak dinner. Like once you're done, you wish you had more, but at the same time, you're happy for what you had.
So did you grow up with Chrono Trigger, or was that something you came to later?
Oh, this is such a wild thing. I rented it once, and addicted. And I kept renting it. And then eventually the game went away from the real story. I guess when I read it and kept it or whatever. I never could find a copy anywhere for the longest time. So whenever I got my first desktop computer, this was right as Super Nintendo emulation started getting actually worthwhile. I started emulating it. But at the time, it wasn't perfect at emulation. Like, the transparency effects didn't work, so I'd have to actually turn off layers of the graphics to be able to play the game. But I eventually beat it there. Of course, as the emulator got better, eventually it's like, oh god, transparencies work. This is great. But I finally legitimately got a copy whenever the DS version came out. So I bought the DS version, and then much later on, I bought a copy off eBay. I think back whenever I bought it, the game was like $30 or $40, which is a steal these days. Then, of course, I bought it for a cell phone, bought it on Steam.
What is it specifically about Chrono Trigger? Because obviously you said like that era of JRPGs was like your thing. What made Chrono Trigger stick out the most?
The time traveling mechanic. Just the fact that the game has points in it where you can go back to a certain time period, change something, and the ripple effect will affect future timelines. And you can actually see it. It's a really, really cool thing. Other games have done since, but for its time, that's something that you didn't really see.
I agree. I didn't play Chrono Trigger until 2018, 2019, somewhere around there for the first time. And I was not expecting it to be as well thought out as it is, as vast as it is. And, I don't like time travel as like a plot thing. I think it can really ruin a game and kind of make the story seem a little insignificant to me. But I mean, it's kind of a minor nitpick because it really is just like when you consider when it came out was 94, 95. It is really just a masterclass in what Square Enix was doing at the time, which also I think it's funny you mentioned emulation because there's something about that era of, Squaresoft at the time that I feel like everybody started emulating things because of Squaresoft. That's just my tinfoil hat little conspiracy here because the first game I ever emulated was Final Fantasy IV. So.
Yep, I can fully agree with you there because I can't tell you, like back in the day, how the forums were about, there's a new translation patch for Final Fantasy 3/6 that brings back, what they originally intended, which, no offense to the guy that did translate that game. I think it was Woolsey, if I remember right. He did an awesome job with the time that he had, but it was really cool to replay that game without the restrictions that Nintendo of America put on him.
Right. Yeah. It was like learning that there was like this whole other genre of game that we weren't really getting over here. And many of them just so happened to be made by Squaresoft. And so I think it was just one of those things where it's like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to get Final Fantasy III. It wasn't released here or whatever. So I'm going to play that. Why don't we slide into the game that we played for today's episode? Today, we played Vectorman. And so I always like to kick the episode off talking about our previous histories with this game. And I'll let you, well, I feel like you've been talking a lot, so maybe I'll kick this one off and then I'll pass it off to you.
I'm good at talking a lot.
Figure I'd give you a little bit of a break. I feel like I'm not even really hosting at this point.
Well, my wife tells me I talk too much all the time, so I get it.
This is why we're podcasters, baby. So Vectorman, for me, by the time this came out, I didn't own a Genesis anymore. We traded in all of our Genesis stuff along with the peripherals like the 32X and the Sega CD. Traded that stuff in for the Saturn. Whether or not that was a good idea, I mean, it felt like a good idea at the time. Anyway, personally, whenever I was like at the local video store, I didn't even really think twice about Vectorman because already, it's funny to think about, the Genesis just kind of felt like old news. Kind of like I had like transcended, you know, I'm better than everybody now.
Got me a CD-based system.
One that doesn't need the Genesis to run. So, but my childhood friend, Max, he did not have a Saturn. He still had his Genesis. And when we had sleepovers, we needed games to play for it because we already played everything in his collection. So, I mean, I joke about how I felt like better than everybody with a Saturn, but like I really was tired of playing Genesis games at this point. I even think earlier in the show, I kind of talked about how like I always favored Nintendo a little bit over Genesis, even though I had them both. And even when we had the Saturn, I was still playing a lot of Super Nintendo. But the times we did play Vectorman, I just wasn't that into it. I never really cared about the game. And when I saw it coming up on the list of games I was doing for the podcast, and I was going to have to cover it soon, I also wasn't very excited. What some of the things that I found out about the development history for the game kind of makes me feel a little bit vindicated, a little. I don't know, maybe I was just too snobby for being 12 years old at the time, but yeah, that's just kind of how Vectorman was for me back then.
In my case, I still had the Genesis. And this was a game that popped up at a small rental store called Hometown Video in Oakland City. Shout out to that old place that isn't there anymore.
R.I.P. I shouted out North Shore Video on either my last episode or the episode before that.
I miss those old rental places, man. Gaming was different back then. But this game popped up on the shelf, and I had read about the game at EGM before I had actually seen it. And I drew similarities with it to Donkey Kong Country, which I'm sure we'll go into later, but it's kind of funny. I kind of looked at that as a kid and go, man, graphically, it almost has like a Donkey Kong Country vibe to it. Rented it, and I think I could get to like day 6 or 7 before I would game over. And that's pretty well all I played it was those rentals until emulation came out. And I did emulate it a few times. Never did beat it in emulation. I got further, but I want to say day like 9 or 10. And you had brought it up for the show. And we're like, sure, I got memories of it. We can check it out. And I did finally beat it yesterday, I think.
Yeah, I think a little bit later I'm going to kind of bring up what I said about going from Atari to the NES again when we talk about the presentation, because there's a little bit of that in here also. It's not exactly the same, but we're seeing that kind of like that graphical arms race kind of reach a new plateau, so to speak. And because like I am covering my earliest memories to my most recent memories, which, you know, my most recent memories are only going to go up until like 2011, which isn't very recent at all. But we are like, I am, as I'm playing these games in real time and covering them, I am seeing that progression. And this is like one of the first, like, I don't want to say like the first benchmarks, but this is like one of the first like games that really pushed the 16-bit hardware in the mid-90s. It was like Why don't we talk? We'll talk about. Let's just get into the development history because I feel like I'm about to go on a long rant here.
Well, historically, as far as Vectorman goes, I really feel like this was Sega's attempt not only to take on Donkey Kong Country, but to take on PlayStation to show them, hey, you don't need to buy a new console to get superior graphics. You can get them on our system still, in our 16-bit systems.
Yeah, man, there's like, it's going to sound like I'm sort of punching down on Sega, and I've already said this before I think it might have been one of my Sonic episodes. It might have been the first Sonic the Hedgehog episode where I said that, Sonic was a knee-jerk reaction to Mario. And in the same way, Vectorman is the same thing where like it just feels like people sat down in a boardroom and they're like, Nintendo's got this thing. We need to have our thing. What can we do? There's something so like corporate about it. The 16-bit era, I get it. It's on its last legs. Donkey Kong Country had just been released and it was massively successful. I can't talk tonight. And it was just one of those things that like Sega looked at and some guy in a suit and a tie was like, what have we got? What are we doing? Is that Sonic game still happening on the Saturn? That thing's still happening, right? Right? Thank God. Okay, good. What's the team in California doing? We heard something about they're doing something with balls. And you know who has balls? Sega's got balls, big ones. So tell them to make that game. But that game, that Sonic game that we've got for the Saturn, that's definitely coming out, right? Spoiler alert, that game did not come out.
I feel the need that I also want to bring up here that this is like dead in the middle of the video game mascot wars where everything had to have a mascot. Like you had Aero the Acrobat, you had Zool, you had Ristar, you had all these people trying to make a mascot for their gaming company, even if they were only a game publisher and not an actual console manufacturer like Nintendo and Sega.
It's too bad nobody knew about a Bandicoot in Sega. Who would have known a Bandicoot?
No, we got Titus the Fox instead.
So let's back up here. So what is Vectorman? Vectorman is a 2D platformer developed by Blue Sky Software and published by Sega. And if Blue Sky sounds familiar, it's because I literally just talked about them in the Jurassic Park episode. They are one and the same as far as the developer goes. And it's just nice to see that progression for Blue Sky, because they went from working on a lot of sports games at the time for Sega. Then they made Jurassic Park, and then they made the sequel, Rampage Edition. And now Sega basically gave them carte blanche to do whatever they want. Well, mostly whatever they want. They needed a mascot platformer, and they're like, become the competitor for Donkey Kong Country, go. So that's what they did. But yeah, I mean, we talked about, we've been poking fun at the Sega CD and the 32X and the Saturn. And all of those things were kind of like bringing down Sega in a way that would obviously ruin them. And I think at the time, though, I didn't know that this was actually like going on, because like the industry at the time wasn't really like, it's hard to call it an industry, but it was. I think it was just harder to get the kind of information that we're privy to now. So now, like looking at it in hindsight and looking at how unsuccessful the Sega CD was, how unsuccessful the 32X was, and how horrible the Saturn launch was, I think I was noticing that as a kid, and it just didn't all click with me. And maybe that is also one of the reasons why I was a little bit disinterested in Sega at the time. Does any of that make sense?
As kids, our information back then was 3 to 6 months behind as well. Like these days, you can just hop on the internet, and if something happens, within seconds, it's being broadcast out. Back then, like our only way was either through firsthand experience or by reading about it, like Electronic Gaming Monthly or Game Pro, Nintendo Power. So if something happened and we didn't see it, it took us 3 to 6 months to actually, realize what was happening.
Yeah, and I also didn't know like a ton of people that were in the Sega ecosystem either. You know, I had the one friend, everybody else, they were playing either Game Boy games or on the Super Nintendo. So it was really just one of those points where it's like, even though we had a Saturn and then we would get a Dreamcast eventually as well, I was just never all in on Sega as I was on Nintendo, because it just never felt like Sega wasn't, Sega's priorities were like kind of all over the place. They didn't seem like a very focused company.
And that was actually fairly accurate, because Sega was always a company at war with itself between the American branch and the Japanese branch.
But I mean, with that said, I mean, Vectorman, it did receive a ton of awards. It did sell incredibly well. The only game at the time that did better than it was its own competition, Donkey Kong Country 2 at that point. And it's funny because some of the accolades that this game got, I mean, again, it reviewed very well. It's just interesting because, like, if you remove this maybe like a year or two later, those same magazine outlets and those reviewers were totally just dismissing 2D games in favor of 3D. Because I don't remember what game I was covering specifically. It was Nightmare Creatures. And I remember reading a review from like EGM or IGN or something saying how state of the art Nightmare Creatures was, and it was like this game that you had to play. And it was a game changer. And then that very same year, Symphony of the Night came out, and they gave it horrible reviews, and they're like, this is really dated and it's 2D. And I'm like, all right, I guess. I'm like, but I mean, 2025 Keith knows exactly what game holds up better.
So who's your favorite fighter in Nightmare Creatures?
Oh, dude.
I'm in full agreement with you on that one. Definitely would rather play Castlevania.
I mean, if I was going to play Nightmare Creatures, if I was going to play it again, I'd probably play the N64 version, only because you can turn off like whatever that anxiety meter or whatever the hell. I don't know if it's called the anxiety meter. All I know is that it did give me anxiety. So
that's fair. You didn't want to mess with the load times in the PlayStation.
Yeah. So some of the personnel involved with Vectorman are Carl Roblard, Jerry Marcotta, Jenny Cleary, Rich Karp, Marty Davis, Mark Lorenzen, and John Holland on the soundtrack, who is a man after my heart, which we'll talk about in the presentation a little bit later. Programming for Vectorman began all the way back in the early 80s. Technically not like Vectorman specifically, but programming for the vector-based graphics that the team used for this game began in the late 80s. And the idea for the game kind of sprouted from the Amiga of all places, because I guess Carl Roblard watched a demo of vector balls that were basically these plain spherical sprites that were animated to give the appearance of 3 dimensions, or like 3-dimensional depth. And so Roblard and Karp worked together to create an engine that would produce the same effects on the Genesis without sacrificing frame rate or sprite quality. And they called it VAT. So they had that before Bethesda, if anybody has to ask, which was an acronym. It was for Vectorman Animation Tool. And as much side eye I give Sega and how they handled themselves for this generation, I think what Blue Sky had achieved with Vectorman was basically like a massive go f yourself to Nintendo. Because on the other side of things, you did have Nintendo being incredibly experimental with the FX chips, and they were kind of pushing the limits of their hardware with the silicon graphics that Rare was using. But they were claiming, because of course they were at war with Sega, that Sega would never be able to achieve the same thing they were able to with the Genesis. And they did. So I think it's incredibly, it's just like a huge, I just read it as like a massive success story almost, in what they were able to, Blue Sky was able to pull off on the hardware.
Yeah, they did a really good job, in my opinion, not just in the main character, but even the background animations.
Yeah, I mean, again, we'll dive into graphics later. We can save all of that for a little bit down the line here. I might be putting you on the spot here, and if you don't want to answer, it's totally fine. The question is Vectorman better than Donkey Kong Country?
Ooh. I will say a immediate no.
Okay. Interesting.
I feel like it's a good game for the Sega Genesis. I feel that there are some gameplay problems that hold it back, though.
See, and I also think there are gameplay problems with Donkey Kong Country that hold it back also.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not going to argue that point.
I was going to save my rant for the end of the show. Maybe I'll say this. Okay. I think Vectorman is a better game than Donkey Kong Country.
Oh, okay.
Maybe because I played all three of those Donkey Kong Country games a couple months ago, back to back. Yeah, man, I don't know.
Now, I will say I feel like Vectorman 1 is a better game than Donkey Kong 3. But if we're talking Vectorman 1, Donkey Kong Country 1, I feel like 1's a better game.
I will say Donkey Kong Country 1 is probably the best of the three, in my opinion.
Right.
And that's a hot take.
I know most people
I can't win either way.
Most people are going to say 2. I would actually still say 1. But that's only because I played 1 a lot more than I played 2, and I felt 2, the difficulty spike was just too much too fast. But anyway.
Yeah, and of course, as you stated in your own personal history, you're talking about how you kind of were like seeing and hearing about this game everywhere. I mean, Sega pretty much promoted the hell out of this thing, which is probably why it was as successful as it was in the first place. So I don't really need to go into any of that. Let's just kind of wrap up the development history here. Vectorman was released on October 25th, 1995 for the Sega Genesis in the United States. A month later, it would get a release for our pals playing the Mega Drive, of course, overseas, and did not see a release in Japan actually until it hit the Wii Virtual Console in 2007, which is it's a long time. Speaking of, it was ported to the PC, Wii, and Wii U Virtual Consoles, and it is right now available on Nintendo Switch Online. It has been included on numerous compilation games, way too many to name, and has been followed up by Vectorman 2. After Blue Sky shut down their operations in, I think it's 2002, Vectorman 3 was announced for the PlayStation 2 in 2003, the following year, but was canceled shortly after that.
Wasn't there a teaser trailer for that, if I remember right?
Yes, and that's pretty much all there is. I also read that they were going to do either like a movie or a TV show.
Yeah, well, I was hoping I was remembering the teaser trailer, right? So from the teaser, like the actual character Vectorman, he looked really good.
Yeah, there's, a small committed fan base that would like to see Vectorman come back. And listen, I feel like the past couple episodes, I feel like I've really been giving my feelings away about the game in question up top, but I wouldn't mind seeing a new Vectorman game.
I would maybe love seeing one.
Give it to an indie dev or something, They could probably do something really cool.
If they remade it, would you want to stick to a 2D or would you prefer like a 3D version?
Good question.
Because I can see the gameplay mechanics working in either.
I think if you're going to do 3D, you got to go the first-person shooter like Metroid Prime route.
Yes.
I feel like that's the only... yeah, I don't... that's tough. I think I would prefer... I would prefer 2D. Just stick to 2D. If you go to 3D, that's already going to be like a bloated budget for the most part, right?
Maybe.
And you don't necessarily need to use like the same engine or anything like that for like 2D. You can still just use regular sprites for the most part. Anyway, yeah, I kind of lost the plot here. What was I talking about? Oh, review scores. Review scores for context. Gamers, just Gamers magazine really cornered the market on that name in the 90s. Gave it 80%. Electronic Gaming Monthly gave it 83%. And Vectorman also won the Editor's Choice Award for that year. Game Informer gave it 91%. IGN 8.5. Computer and Video Games 96%, and GamePro 98%. Talitha Snyder on Amazon gave Vectorman a perfect 5 out of 5, also stating, "I giving this a 5-star because you can walk around at the Sega logo. It's not bad. You can shoot too. It's a good game." End quote.
I was actually going to bring that up later, that I actually like that little thing that they did where you could control them at the game with intro. It's almost like a tutorial to how to control them.
I was going to ask you because I did not know that until I read this review. And I'm like, okay, so I usually have these like Amazon and like eBay and Google reviews as kind of like a joke review. I mean, they're real reviews from people, but to kind of like just make fun of people. But I'm like, first of all, this is like a pretty earnest review. It was very hard to find any user reviews for Vectorman. So this was like the best one I could find. But also I learned something from it, like, because I didn't know that. So I like went back and played the game, and like, this must be like a Blue Sky thing, because they did it with Jurassic Park too, where they just like take the publisher logo and do something cool with it. I like when developers do that. And this is like the coolest use of that, because you get to play the game.
Yeah, and it's almost like a small tutorial with no enemies or anything. You can learn how to control them, and whenever you run off the Sega logo, it requires you to do the double jump to jump back on top of it.
Right.
So I thought it was just, a cool little touch,
Yeah, I had no idea. I thought it was just like a nice, at first I was like, okay, cool. They're using the publisher logo in a cool way again, with like Vectorman falling on top of the logo and kind of like pretending like he's going to fall off the edge. Had no idea you could control him. Really cool.
Yeah, I like the little touch they did there. It's the polar opposite of X-Men 2 on the Sega Genesis, where it just, you don't even get a logo. It just drops you right in.
Let's slide into retro recollections here. This is the portion of the show where we get to hear what you, dear listener, have to say about today's game. The week prior to recording, I will unleash to the general public what I'll be covering and asking for your thoughts, both past and present, on the game in question. Or either or. Doesn't matter. What does matter is that if you want to participate in this portion of the show, all you have to do is follow the podcast on your social media platform of choice, or join the Discord, and keep an eye on the Retro Recollections channel. All the links to where you can participate are, of course, in the show notes, and I always start with the Discord community first. Chris from A Novel Console says, "I remember this game. I was also like 10. So I might have just been stupid. I played it on a Sega Nomad while my cousins watched Nightmare on Elm Street."
Oh my God, I always wanted a Nomad.
A lot to unpack here. Yeah, I mean,
It was so cool for the time. Like you could just play any Genesis game you wanted on the go, and then you realize that the thing chewed through batteries like candy.
as they all did back then. Also, like, I don't remember any part of Vectorman. I know what he's saying, but also, like, out of context.
I mean, he could go look like a character from the Balls 3D fighting game, so...
Well, I was going to say Vectorman does also have, like, some sort of hip action going on. Anyway, let's move on to another Chris. Chris Copleen of Retro Hangover says, "I remember there being so much hype for this game when it came out. It was everywhere for Sega. Like it was some sort of Donkey Kong Country killer." I'm now understanding all of these references, by the way. I didn't play it then, but when I got one of those compilations much later on, I decided to give it a go. It was not a DKC killer. I mean, it was all right, but it felt like another Genesis game that was more concerned with being quote unquote cool than being fun or interesting. Oh, okay. I don't think that's a very hot take at all. I mean, as we just discussed, we both have polarizing views on on whether or not it was better than Donkey Kong Country. We'll get into that soon. Masked Keaton has this to say. I've played Vectorman a few times, never got past the first level. I don't find it fun. I can't put my finger on why, but maybe it's because you have to hit the TVs that drop power-ups a long time before they drop the power-ups. Am I remembering properly? It depends how fast you're shooting the TVs, I guess. That wasn't anything I particularly had an issue with.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't have any problems with the first level, but I don't know, maybe it was more difficult than I thought, but I don't remember ever having any problems with it. Like, my problems didn't really start to like maybe the 5th or 6th level.
Yeah, and like, yeah, as far as the TVs go, I mean, I don't know about you, but like I was just like hammering on the A button like the entire time. So it wasn't really like an issue. Like I was getting my like Contra muscles back basically while playing this game.
I would hammer whenever I was at a TV. Otherwise, I wouldn't, just because I was trying to save the special weapon ammo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's all on a timer though?
It might have been like back whenever I had played it. I wasn't sure if it was a timer or limited shots. So I'm here like, maybe if I don't fire it as much, I'll keep it longer.
We'll talk about that in a second. Got 2 more retro elections to get here. Matt Stormageddon from the Fun and Games and Reignite podcast. I loved Vectorman growing up. It seems silly now, but the graphics felt mind-blowing at the time. The music was weird and catchy. The gameplay was challenging, but fun. The story was dystopian. Sure is. Lots of fond memories of this one. So yeah, we got a more positive review here going on.
Who knew that Blue Sky could predict the future?
Yeah, right. And finally, Willie of the Grand Rapidians Play Video Games says, it's cool and all, but it's no balls. Second time that game's been brought up. So let's move into this dystopian plot. There's the cold open, right? That does lay out the story and everything. Has some very good illustrations too of our villain here, Warhead, and Vectorman himself. And I read this story and I was like, okay, so this is just Wall-E. Like Disney just stole this plot for Wall-E.
Yeah,
it's literally the same plot.
Yeah, they're almost identical. Although playing it recently, I felt like this was possibly a prediction of the future timeline where Trump invades Canada and Greenland, and we destroy the world, and then we have to leave it to have robots clean it up. I feel like we're living in the dystopian timeline. Thanks for predicting that, Blue Sky. Appreciate it.
First our eggs, and then Canada, and then the world.
Yep. All under a horrible orange banner.
I did write down the cold open here verbatim. It is, quote, it's 2049. In Earth's cities, forests, and ice caps are fouled with toxic sludge. Humanity has escaped to the stars, leaving mechanical orbots to clean up. One powerful orbot, Raster. You see what they did there? Raster and Vector? It's for nerds. Anyway, oversees the cleanup through a planet-wide comnet. Tragedy strikes when in error. Attendants connect a salvaged nuclear bomb to Raster's master control circuits. Warhead is born. And he stands for tyranny, hatred, and oppression.
I love how they made Raster Graphics the bad guy.
By Warhead's decree, Earth is forged into an instrument of death for returning humans. Vectorman lands his space barge after delivering a load of sludge to the sun. Unhindered by evil mind control, he will not rest until Warhead is defeated and the Earth is free again. End quote. I don't know. What do you think about the story?
I think you nailed it whenever you said it's more or less Wall-E. Although the one question I had shooting forth in the gameplay, if all these robots are just under some kind of mind control thing, they had some evil looking robots doing cleanup.
Yeah, it's one of those like Mega Man type things, right? Like, or at least like Mega Man X, right? Because you've got the Mavericks and the Maverick Hunters, and like Sigma taking over the minds of all the Mavericks and stuff like that. Kind of reminded me of those games a little bit. The plots in those. Why do these villainous things exist? And I mean, the simple reason is obviously they're like robots used in like construction and stuff like that. It's just like, yeah, okay, I don't know why clown.
They got the one robot though with like the giant grinning mask on it.
Yeah, right. Clown Man or whatever. Yeah. Listen, I mean, it's silly video game plots, right? I think at least Vectorman, like for its time, was relatively original. The only thing I have a problem is like maybe the humans just don't go back. Like I feel like they were doing pretty okay in outer space, right? So why Warhead can have Earth? Just go ahead.
It's fine. We'll colonize Mars or Venus or something. That's fine.
Yeah, we'll mess something else up. It's fine. We got it.
If you're going to do something, be good at it.
Right. So yeah, let's dive into the gameplay, the meat of the podcast, so to speak.
Before we go into gameplay, can we talk about the title screen real quick?
Oh yeah, 100%. Go ahead.
Okay, the little tune that plays on the title screen, like it's really a catchy tune. Has that kind of like EDM feel to it. And then you've got all the balls that are like firing in a stream to make a logo. It was a really impressive opening.
Well, not to mention, like, I don't know if you looked at the background at all. I'm glad we're talking about this because this isn't something that I particularly took notes on, but I do remember. But just like looking in the background, like you had like 3D objects in the background as well. Like there's like these cylinders that were like spinning around in the back. And yeah, it's just a really interesting logo screen that or title screen rather, that was really, and like none of it is like slowed down or anything. I guess we're kind of talking about graphics here a little bit. There's like no slowdown or anything, and it was just like everything was very smooth. And I think that's just going to kind of, at least from my point of view, going to be my thing going forward, is just how impressive this game is to play, how much it like really holds up in those aspects when you consider how old the hardware is.
Right. Which it's kind of funny because you had mentioned they had looked at 60 frames per second. That's like their target. Most of our TVs at the time only output in like, I believe 24 frames per second for a standard CRT. So it's kind of interesting how they were almost looking to the future, just making this game in a way.
Yeah, really future-proofing it. Yeah, because like, I don't know about you. This is a thought that I had a couple of days ago. I never really became aware of frame rate until like, I don't know, 2008 or 2009. Like, I don't know when that became like, I don't know, maybe I was just a dumb person for a long time where I just like never really thought, like, obviously I noticed when a game slowed down and stuff, but I didn't ever really like have context for that.
My first context was NTSC versus PAL. One was based off 50 frames, one was based off 60 frames. And whenever you start emulating, you'd realize, well, hey, this European game feels slower. Well, because certain games, whenever they got ported over to the European version, they didn't actually reprogram the game to take that into account. They just tuned it to 50 hertz and they were done.
Ah, right. Okay. See, I didn't even think about emulation. I guess I just didn't emulate a lot of European games.
I was weird.
No, I mean, hey, whatever floats your boat, man. I guess makes you more, what's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say classy, but we'll go with classy. You're more learned than I am.
I said was weird, or maybe I could have said is weird.
I was going to say cultured. No, we'll say you're cultured.
And that was just kind of interesting to play some random game and realize, hey, the music is a little slower. Why is the music slower? Why is the character not running as fast? And then it leads you down that rabbit hole.
I mean, gaming had only in popular culture, gaming had only really existed for about 15 years at this point. Yeah, and they're thinking about frame rate, which, like, obviously, I guess if you play Donkey Kong Country, you're probably like, well, if we need a game that at least runs better than this. There's going to be a lot of Donkey Kong Country bashing in this episode, from my end at least. So if you want to turn the podcast off, you can.
No, I'll totally concede that point. The Donkey Kong Country has some major slowdown issues.
So, of course, one of the first things, I tend to do when playing a game is I check out the options. Pretty standard stuff here in the options. But I did notice that classic 90s Sega attitude when you look at the difficulty settings, because you got wicked, insane, and lame. So, so first of all, you Blue Sky, I already know that I'm lame. I don't need anybody to rub it in. But also, what is the difference? I know what the difference between wicked and insane is, but those words may as well be the same thing.
Although whenever I played this, I did play it on wicked. I was scared to take it down the lane because I was afraid that it would only allow me to beat a few stages and then restart.
That is not the case, because I did play on lame, aka easy, which also it still was not easy. I think the difference, at least between the easy and wicked, which is normal, it's the default setting. You get a little bit more health and a little bit more lives, and that's pretty much it. And I did also have the same thought as you, where I was like, okay, so if I play this on easy, they're going to let me play 3 levels or something, and then might have to restart. And it's ever since I played that one X-Men game where it was you get through a couple levels and then Magneto's like, ha, 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 go yourself. I'm like, okay, great. No, I don't want to play this again.
Well, now I kind of wish I will play it in the lane, because you said that you get a couple extra lives, which means I could have seen a couple more of the tiny Vectorman down the corner of the screen doing their little groove.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing touch.
I just don't understand this era of gaming, especially, I guess, because I don't remember Nintendo doing this a lot, where they're just negging the consumer.
I'll teach you for spending $40-$50 to buy this game.
Yeah, how dare you buy our game? You playing on for? I don't know. You included the difficulty setting, man. Why are you making fun of me?
Comes back to what did Mike Matei say on Twitter? If you used the rewind or fast forward feature to play a game, you didn't beat the game or something like that.
Is that one of the who is Mike Matei?
He was one of the AVGN guys.
Okay,
I think he was in a Bugs Bunny suit or something.
What? What?
Yeah, for the Bugs Bunny episode, he was a guy in the suit.
Okay, I've never watched a lot of Angry Video Game Nerds, so I don't really
okay.
have it. I was just
well, he's got a lot of cameos in the show, but in the cameos, he's usually dressed up as something.
Okay, see, and I wasn't sure if there was 2 people doing that show, or if it was just the guy. I was going to call him Leonard. His name's not Leonard. Shows how much I know about gaming YouTube.
That's canon. He's Leonard now.
Yeah, it's just his name. Just Chat GPT thinks I have a co-host named Ratbone or something. Vectorman. Vectorman is I would say it's basically a run and gun, right? This, as much as this is an answer to Donkey Kong Country, I also kind of think
Contra. I get Contra vibes from it.
Yeah, I feel like this is Sega's Contra. I think graphically, yes, it is in competition with Donkey Kong Country, but gameplay wise, this is kind of like Contra.
Well, on the first stage, you see so many little cool tricks that they do. In the background, you'll see the clouds floating by. You'll see these flags that are waving. And the flags, whenever they're waving in the wind, they look really, really smooth. And it's thanks to that whole 60 frames per second thing that we were talking about earlier. Bottom of the screen, your extra lives are just doing this groove. I find just hilarious, and at the same time really cool that they put that in.
Yeah, it gives this game a lot of character. And Surprisingly, I mean, one of the things I was not really looking forward to were the graphics, because like, oh boy, this isn't going to hold up well at all. And really kind of thinking that a lot of the sprites weren't going to hold up and that the enemies are going to like look like trash. It doesn't. And I know we keep dipping in and out of the graphics here, but it's like there's enough varied enemies and they all like have like a specific role to play in each of the levels, where that it makes the gameplay. So there's like I'm kind of all over the place here, trying to pack my thoughts up here.
Well, I'll jump in if you want then. What is here is really good. That being said, and this is one of my knocks on the game, you see a lot of it repeated. Like, you do see a decent amount of enemy variation, but as far as the actual background, I brought up those flags that look really good when they're waving. You're going to see those flags at least 2 or 3 more times in this game. And the game's only 15 stages long.
Well, you say only 15 stages. I think that's one of the things I didn't like about the game is that I felt like it was too long.
I felt like it was long, but only because later stages get maze-like.
Yeah, and that's also like, so there's like this weird push and pull with the level design. Hold on, sorry. I have to burp.
Well, while he's over there belching away, and I'm sure muting it out, the first stage I remember that gets maze-like, I think, was like the grain factory or the something like that. But there's all these ropes that are pulling these containers along, and some of them go down and some of them go up. And this stage, you have to maneuver in multiple directions, and it's tricky to go down on these because you can't like hold down the down button and hit jump drop down. You actually have to ride the little elevator thing down. So to me, that kind of slowed me down a whole lot. And that's also the level where I felt like the game started to trap me a little bit, because you'll be in these hallways that are so short you can't jump, and then they'll throw an enemy there, and your only option, if it shoots at you, is to duck or retreat.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's like, that's the one negative thing I have to say about this. Well, I guess the other negative thing I have to say, because my first negative thing is I think the game is too long, and that's only because what you said. I mean, that first stage, they reused that first stage like 3 or 4 times throughout the game. They could just take 3 of those out. Like if they want to reuse it once, where it's like you return to the stage and it's slightly different, and it's like, and I think one of the cases, I think there's like a thunderstorm happening, which like that lightning looks fantastic.
Now, if it were me, I would have kept them in, but I would have restructured how the game was built. Go ahead and have those 3 levels that all use the same assets but recolored, but have them happen one after another. That way it feels like you're going through the same area as the sky goes from daytime to night and then the storm hits. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
But instead they're like kind of mixed in, like completely randomly.
Yeah, the Sonic 3 thing, right? Where you have like the 2 acts and they're pretty much the same level, but they're different because they're trying to tell you a story, right?
Right. I would have bought it if they would have designed it like that.
Yeah, agreed. And then I agree with your other statement in that like the exploration, I can appreciate when the developer takes time to build levels with a ton of good exploration. And this game definitely has it. The problem is that the exploration aspect is rubbing up against the run and gun aspect, because when you think of games like Metal Slug and Contra, which are like 2 series that I really, really like, you're not doing a lot of exploring. Like everything comes to you naturally because you are just going through mostly from left to right, sometimes top to bottom to top. Vectorman has a lot of nooks and crannies, and you are rewarded for exploring. Like you do get weapon upgrades, you get extra lives, you find what are basically this game's version of heart containers that gives you more, adds more health to your health bar. So you are rewarded, but also the gameplay I felt like the gameplay wanted you to keep moving. And that is also only supported by the fact that the levels are timed. So you've also got this timer sweating you the entire time. And some of the enemies, like you said, I don't know if you mentioned this, but they're bullet sponges. A lot of the enemies are bullet sponges. And so sometimes when you're coming up against an enemy that's kind of like blocking your way, you kind of have to back off a little bit for a second, come back and kind of like reorientate yourself so that you're kind of like in the right spot to attack them. There's also some enemies that are like basically there to just block your progression. Like there's like these one enemies that like move when you move and like jump when you jump, and you kind of have to like sneak under them or sneak around them.
Yeah, I'd fully agree with that. Like, there's the one enemy, and again, it's got the mask, and it's got this dump truck loader thing that's going above its head.
Yeah.
And you have to get past this guy, and the only way to actually get past him is to blow up that little dump truck thing, and then he'll start walking forward. Whenever he walks forward, you can get behind him and then continue on with the level. But if you don't know that, you're sitting there, because there's nothing that's actually showing you that you're doing damage to it. You hit at the mask kind of bounces back a bit and then forward. And then if you hit the little dump truck logo thing, nothing happens.
Hit him in
so
the
there's
dump
nothing, truck. Yeah. I don't know what you call it. But yeah, there's nothing that the game is telling you to tell you, hey, destroy that part that way can get past this guy. And like the first few times I played this game, that was my stopping points. I couldn't figure out how to get past it. It was only whenever I got to that guy with the spread shot upgrade that I figured out what was going on.
I will say, like, despite my problems with like the structure of the game and exactly how they want you to interact with it, I was still having fun. I was still having fun playing this game. It feels good to shoot with Vectorman. Like the firing feels good. And like I said, like I was always kind of doing like the little, I don't know what you would, like a hummingbird motion on that A button, just like constantly firing. And I mean, just overall, like the game is just so smooth, especially for everything that's happening on screen. I mean, when you get some of those upgrades, the weapon upgrades, which I used in my mind, I keep calling it like the shotgun upgrade, but it's more of like a spread shot. But it feels, when you fire it, it feels like a shotgun. Like it feels powerful. That was like one of my favorite ones. And I'm almost certain, I don't think it goes by, I'm not sure. This is something I would have to look up. I don't know if it goes by ammo or if it's
time or
timed.
ammo either.
Yeah, I'm not, because I feel like some of them I had longer. I don't know. But either way, I mean, if you have unlimited ammo of like the regular shot, but it's just like the weapons that you pick up are either limited by ammo or limited by time. The game doesn't explain to you if it's timed, or it doesn't have like an ammo counter at the bottom of the screen or anything either. So also, like, just Vectorman feels good, like, to move around. We mentioned the double jump, which is like standard for his movement. And so the platforming is also pretty generous with that way. There's also the one thing that we didn't talk about with his double jump is that he has frames in which there's like a burst of fire coming out of his boots. And if you time it correctly, you can actually damage enemies this way.
Yeah, that comes in very handy.
Yeah. So it's just like this, like I said, there's like this kinetic energy to Vectorman in the way that he moves and attacks, and everything like comes together so well. Especially, I mean, like I said, this game is very difficult even on easy. So you're going to be replaying a lot of these levels. The other sticking point I have with this, the other negative thing I have is that there are no continues. You die and then you got to restart the entire game. There are checkpoints, but again, you have to like go out of your way to kind of search for the checkpoints, which also, again, rubs up against the fact that I'm like, hey, this is kind of like Contra, but also it's like kind of not at the same time. It's weird.
Vectorman, he controls very, very tight. Very, very good to play with. My biggest issue is his hitbox is huge. So if something's firing at you, you have to dodge in advance of it hitting you, otherwise you will take a hit. Although I do like the way he does get hit too. It feels like there's weight behind it. Like you'll see the bullet almost bounce off him. You'll see him kind of jerk back. Graphically, there's so much weight behind it that you don't see in other games.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because like when you think of a platformer, I think a lot of people just immediately go to like, oh, they must control like Mario, which is like Vectorman, not exactly like Mario, but like it's still it's different, and it's not like Mega Man. It's definitely not like Donkey Kong from DKC. Yeah, having weight like is like a good way to put it, but it's not like intrusive. Like it doesn't work against Vectorman.
Right. I would almost say that he feels heavy, but I'm not saying it in a bad way at all.
Yeah. Now, what about these transformations?
I thought that they were a cool little feature to the game. I like the drill one where you can drill through floors. I only got the bomb one twice, and I thought that one was kind of funny, how he could blow himself up and then reconstitute.
Yeah.
Did you get the, I don't know if it'd be like a fish one or a frog one in the water level?
Yeah, I saw that in the manual. I did not get that.
So I never got it, but I've seen it before. So I didn't know if you came across it or not, because I have seen it.
No.
But never actually found it whenever I was playing.
Yeah, no, I never came across it. But yeah, I saw it in the manual, and I'm like, okay, all right. But yeah, everything else is like, I think, so there's 2 mandatory ones. 2 or 3 of them are mandatory. I think it's the train, the little like frog one, I think. And the other one that the manual calls the dancing fool. And I think these are like, they're stages, but they're like specifically boss fights. The one with the frog, brutal. Like,
yeah, I fell off the edge of that so many times.
It's so hard.
I'm trying to dodge the feet that are coming at me, and I'm just back off the edge.
So, listener, basically, you are on a moving platformer. Or on a moving platformer.
Platformers? More than meets the eye.
So you're on a moving platform that is constantly generating these barriers that you have to navigate. And as you're running through this moving maze, making sure that you don't fall off the edge of this platform, there's also a boss that you're supposed to be fighting too. And the boss has free range of where it can go. You can do whatever it wants. They are not hindered by the physics of this moving maze that you're stuck in. So they can just hurt you no matter where you go. I had to reset this level like at least 10 times.
I couldn't beat it without damage boosting. That's the only way I could beat it.
Yeah, again, I mean, I was just like, I got lucky, I think, because again, I was just like smashing the A button, trying to fire as fast as possible. And I just got lucky with the number of times that I hit the boss, and I ended up killing him. But if I didn't, what's his name? Mike Matei? Kim, if I didn't have save states, I would have never beat this level.
Well, I think we should bring up that every Warhead level is a boss fight where Vectorman does transform into another character. Like there's one with a train. These train tracks are floating in the sky. Don't ask me how.
Yeah.
But Warhead is like moving his way across with his arms, and you're blasting away at his hands trying to get him to fall off these tracks. Graphically, looks amazing. You've also got these bullets coming in at you, but your train car can jump while you're firing, so you're dodging bullets that way. We had brought up the frog one, which, oh my god, so frustrating. I hated that one.
Yeah, it's easily like one of the hardest parts of the game, I think, in my opinion.
And then you've got the dance floor where you look like the Tasmanian devil.
Yeah, shout out to Tasmania, the like worst game I've played on the Sega Genesis so far.
The Super Nintendo one's pretty good. It's a completely different game though. But yeah, Warhead's in the middle, and he's got this big shield around him with a gap that's moving, and you have to try to get yourself in front of the gap in your tornado form and fire at it with all these other tornadoes on the dance floor coming at you. And I'm sure if you've never played the game, you're just listening to me trying to describe it. You're wondering, what the heck am I smoking?
But all of these things are like visually really, really cool. And, you know, the dance floor one, I think is probably like, I don't know. I had fun. I thought that was an interesting boss fight. The other two, if they weren't visually interesting, I don't think they would have had really much going for them, other than just to be frustrating.
That's where I will give this game something over Donkey Kong Country, is that for its boss fights, it is much more varied.
Oh, man. Yeah. The boss fights in Donkey Kong Country suck.
Just jump on its head like everything else.
Yep. Just jump on it 3 times. And then it's over.
Even the final boss fight in this game, which goes back to the original Vectorman, has a unique mechanic to it. I don't know if you want to go into it yet or not, or if you want to wait.
Well, we're podcast is running a little bit long. I usually don't like to go over 90 minutes, and we got this game and the presentation to go through. So I guess just in a nutshell at this point, you know, just what are just your collective thoughts on the gameplay overall?
Overall, I enjoyed it. Yes, there are flaws to it, in my opinion, but those flaws are pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. Like honestly, it's one of the highlights of the Sega Genesis library. I
agree. I love the way that this game plays. It's got a lot going for it. The way they kind of mixed up the fast-paced gameplay with like a little bit of exploration, and it's like, yeah, that stuff kind of rubs up against each other like incorrectly. They don't quite nail it here. But it has potential, right? And you know, besides personally from thinking like the game overstays its welcome a little bit too long, could be like 4 stages shorter. You know, I think it's a very good like brand new IP by like a worthy developer at this point.
And it made me want to go play the second one.
Let's move on to today's game. I feel like it's been a while, even though it has been a while. This is a game I would like to call Breaking News. Now, Leathco, I pulled the November 1995 issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly. It is the same issue they reviewed Vectorman in. I have 10 questions regarding that magazine specifically. I'm going to ask you specific things about the issue, from ads that they ran, to reviews, to interviews that they conducted. Actually, you know what? I don't even think I have, now that I'm looking back at it, I don't think I have any interviews on here. So just ads and reviews that they ran. You're going to get 3 clues to nail what I'm specifically asking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm hoping to win the $25,000 I did not win when playing the game originally.
Oh, yeah. We didn't even talk about the competition that they ran. We can talk about that after we finish this. So first question I have here is, what game is being featured on the cover of this magazine? So your first clue is it is an early PlayStation game.
Okay.
It is an early David Jaffe game. If you don't know who David Jaffe is, he's the God of War guy.
Oh, okay.
So early PlayStation game, early David Jaffe game. And your final clue here is scary clowns are certainly cool.
Well, I'm hoping with the third one, I'm going to take a shot in the dark and go Twisted Metal.
Correct.
Ooh, lucky.
It is Twisted Metal. All right, man. Hey, you know, you got the first one out of the way. It's all uphill from here, right?
Yeah. I mean, haven't goopsed it up yet.
Shots fired. Question 2 is, what game here is being advertised? It's an advertisement for a specific game. Here are your clues. It is an extreme close-up picture of a mouth full of bees. Extreme close-up picture of a mouth full of bees. Got it?
Okay.
All right. Your next clue. It's a PlayStation / Sega Saturn Crystal Dynamics mascot game. And your last clue is the tagline for this ad is for strength, speed, and the healthy reptilian glow.
Well, I think I got it with the Crystal Dynamics for the second clue, and then the third one being Reptilian. I'm gonna have to go with Gex.
100%. Yeah, man. 2 for 2.
Getting on my teeth, pal.
You don't happen to have the 1995 November issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly, right?
Not yet. I mean, I can go retro mag real quick.
Okay. This is another advertisement. What game is being advertised? Your first clue is that it's an ad for a Super Nintendo / Genesis / 32X / PlayStation port of an arcade game.
Ooh, I think I might already know, but
Oh, do you want to take a shot?
will this be my final answer?
No, I'll give you well, there's 3 clues. I'll give you three chances.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna say Mortal Kombat 2.
It is not Mortal Kombat
Okay.
2.
I had to guess it because I knew that came out for all those systems.
The next clue is, at least I've heard, that this game is quite the slobber knocker.
Wrestling, maybe. WWF WrestleMania?
It is. Okay. Yes, it is. Yeah, the last clue I had here. Well, I was going to give you another clue, but you would have not been privy to it because the episode isn't out. But the one clue I was going to give you was like, it's literally the episode of the main quest that came out prior to this one, but it's not out yet, so you wouldn't even know. It wouldn't make sense. But the last clue that I wrote down was it is the Mortal Kombat of wrestling games, which I think would have given it away.
I was going through like the 32X game library. It's like there's only like 40 games that came out for it.
This is another advertisement. What game is being advertised? Your first clue is the picture is a back shot of some guy sitting down with his ass crack hanging out. And the tagline is, finally, baseball without the chili dog farts.
Oh my God, I remember that ad. I straight up remember that ad. All right, go on.
Second one. All right. This game makes you feel like you're actually there. And the last one is, this game will have you seen red.
I remember the ad and being disgusted by it. I don't remember the actual game, though.
This is a deep pull. I don't blame you. It is Virtual League Baseball for the Virtual Boy.
See, I was getting ready to guess RBI baseball, but I'm here like, I don't feel right.
No trick questions in my games at all. There's no such. I would never trick a guest. Never. Number 5. So the last 5 here are actually reviews. No, the last one is not a review. So the next 4. So these are all reviews. You have to guess the game that is being reviewed.
Ooh, okay.
I will. So there's 4 hints. So this is how the reviews are going to break down. I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to give you a clue. The first clue is going to be like what console the game came out on, right? And then when Electronic Gaming Monthly would review a game, at the bottom of their reviews, they would kind of have like 4 categories to summarize the review. And those categories were, what was the game's best feature? What was the game's worst feature? How long did it take to complete? And if they could recommend any games that were like the game that they reviewed. So I'm going to take those 4 categories and use those as your clues. So you're technically getting 5 clues this time.
Hopefully I can channel my inner Sushi X here.
All right. So what game is being reviewed? Your first clue here is it is a late Super Nintendo sequel to a long-running franchise. And so this game's best feature is that it has lots of secrets. Its worst feature is it's hard as a rock, which I kind of disagree with. I guess that's another clue. Time to complete eternity. And also try is any of the 100 other games just like it.
Oh. The last one has me thrown off. I was going to say Final Fantasy 3 maybe, but that last one, I wouldn't say there's 100 games like Final Fantasy 3. Did come out late in the system's life though.
Again, this is also the November 95 issue, if that helps.
My timeline's shot whenever it comes to anything like that. Screw it, Final Fantasy 3. Oh wait, no, it can't be 3 because if it's 95 and 7 is getting ready to come out. Yeah, because we're in the PlayStation 1 era.
Well, the PlayStation just launched. Final Fantasy VII's a little bit away.
See, I told you my timeline was completely screwed.
No, you're good. You're good. Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
Well, there is a 3 in the title, not the 3 you're thinking of. It is Mega Man X3, which, like, don't know if I would call that game difficult, nor does it take an eternity to complete. So
yeah, that's kind of...
I don't know what that reviewer
X3,
was talking about.
I felt like X2 might have been more difficult, but all right.
The next game being reviewed, guess the game here. It is a late Genesis game. Its best feature is nearly everything. Worst feature is that it's repetitive. Time to complete, medium. Also try, balls.
Vectorman.
You're right. You got it. There's no trick questions. It is Vectorman. Next game. It is a late multi-platform 16-bit game. Its best feature is that it's just like Earthworm Jim. Its worst feature is that it hasn't changed. Time to complete, a long time. Also try Earthworm Jim.
Earthworm Jim 2?
Yes.
Jesus Christ, that's such a dumb luck there.
Leathco, I would never try to trick you. Never. The next game, it is a launch PlayStation game. Its best feature is that it's a new concept. Worst feature is vertigo. Time to complete, medium. Also try, there's nothing like it.
Vertigo. Jumping Flash?
It is Jumping Flash.
Okay, the Vertigo one was like, yeah, okay.
A very interesting time capsule in which that game was reviewed. A new concept, yeah, nothing like it, yeah. It's fun to go back and read some of these. Another game, this is the last game review here that you have to guess. It is a Super Nintendo port of a fighting game. Its best feature is its sound. The worst feature are the smaller fighters. Time to complete is medium. Also try Killer Instinct Arcade or any Mortal Kombat.
Oh, I'm going to guess one of the Neo Geo ports from one of their fighting games. World Heroes.
Final answer.
Yeah.
Well, Leathco, I would never try to trick you, but it is Killer Instinct.
Oh, okay.
The Super Nintendo port.
Well then.
That's all right. That's perfectly fine. You are, you're actually killing it right now. You've only missed three of the 9. The last question here. So every good, gaming magazine back in the day would have a cheats or like a tips and tricks section. Cheats, tips and tricks, whatever. I'm going to give you a bunch of cheat codes that were featured, the name of the cheat codes that were featured in this magazine. And you have to guess what game they're from.
Oh, God.
Make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I'm going to do horrible at this, but sure.
Well, I'm going to give you 6. There's 6 cheat codes that they broke down here. So if you feel like you know what it is before I give you all of them, I'll give you your 3 points back. How about that?
Sure.
All right. First clue, or first cheat, rather. Slow fighting mode.
Okay.
The next cheat, random select. The next cheat, palette swap.
Mm-hmm.
Need another one?
It sounds like it's a fighting game. But yeah, keep shooting them.
Stage select / secret stage.
Okay.
Unlock idol.
Oh, Killer Instinct, wouldn't it?
Yes, it is Killer Instinct, and you regained your 3 points, which
idol is a giveaway.
which puts you at a perfect score, 10 out of 10. The last cheat would have given it away. The last cheat is easy combo breaker. How do you feel, man? You nailed. I mean, technically you missed 3, and I won't let you live it down. But
I will take 7 out of 10. That seems like perfectly. That is a C grade on any test. I'll take it.
Well, you and Goobs are like neck and neck as far as doing well on games go so far this year. So you guys might have to.
I'm in good company then.
Yeah, you guys might have to duel it out doing like a tiebreaker or something. I don't know. Maybe I'll host my own Retro Olympics. Who knows?
There you go.
I'll be the Sega to Secret Levels Nintendo.
Well, what would be the name of it?
Retro Olympics.
Is it the Special Olympic?
It certainly is. Let's slide into the presentation of this game, which I think we've like sprinkled our praise about the graphics here and there throughout the podcast. I don't think we really need to talk about the graphics any more than we have, but I have to ask you. You already kind of mentioned the title screen, but what do you think about the music and the sound effects in this game?
What's there is good. There are tracks that are repeated, and again, with there being 15 stages, means that less music every time they repeat a track. What's there is good. I also like the sound effects. I like the fact that Vectorman has a little bit of voice acting, I guess you call it. I'm not sure if it's actual voice acting, but you get what I'm saying. Overall, I would rate what's there is really good. I do wish there was more of it.
I think objectively, for what the quality is of this, is that it's very good, especially for the Genesis. I'm not like a techno guy. Well, I like the Prodigy, but that's kind of it. Some of this reminded me of the Prodigy. I did mention at the top of the show that John Holland, the guy who programmed the music and the sound effects, kind of mentioned that we kind of share like the same opinion, and that opinion is that the Genesis sound chip is garbage. Holland has been on record stating that he hated making the soundtrack for this game because he hated working with the sound chip. He was apparently like a musician that Blue Sky hired to come in and work on the game. And he had to learn like on the spot how to program music with the chip, and like hated every second of it. And not only that, he also hated the fact that Blue Sky had to then further compress the crap out of it. Even though he's proud of the work he did, he just didn't like how it turned out. And so then they actually eventually released the soundtrack on a CD a few years after the game came out, which is probably going to be the music I'm going to be using in this episode. Not that there's anything wrong with the Genesis soundtrack. If there's a better quality version of the original music that was supposed to go in the game, I'm just going to play it instead, honestly.
The CD is an interesting thing because whenever you had brought up this game, for some reason, I thought that it had come like packaged with the CD of music from the game, and then come to find out it came out like a few years after the fact. So that was me kind of misremembering, but it was Killer Instinct that actually had the Killer Cut CD.
Maybe they did pack it in eventually when they ported it to the other consoles.
I don't know, maybe, because, again, I thought it came with a CD of music, but whenever I started doing a little bit of research, I couldn't find anything on the Genesis version coming with that. So
Vectorman didn't get another port. What am I talking about?
Well, it came out in a bunch of the compilations.
The compilations, yeah. Oh, so maybe, I don't know, maybe you got some form of it there. Well, either way.
Or that I could be confusing the CD with the contest, too.
Oh, yeah, so let's go back to that, because I didn't know about this contest.
They just had a play to win, $25,000. It was on the cover, and certain copies of the game, whenever you beat it, instead of getting the ending, you would get a, hey, call this phone number. And if you call that number, you would win. The first person that called the number won the $25,000. And I think I was watching a YouTube video that said that there was a kid in America that won it, and he also got like more games. I think they got a bunch of Sega Saturn swag out of it.
Wait, so how did you prove that you would have beaten it?
By calling the phone number, because the phone number didn't come up. And
can I call it now and be like, hey, I beat Vectorman?
Well, I'm
like,
sure.
what proof would they have?
No, you can't, but maybe you can. That's another interesting thing about this, because apparently all the ROM dumps of this game, none of them have that ending screen phone number. A copy of the game that has that ending screen has not been dumped yet. So there's actually a big thing in the retro gaming community of finding someone that has a copy of this game that has that ending screen. But apparently it was only a few hundred copies that even had it. They released a few hundred copies of the game that had the modified ending screen with the phone number that you call, and then the rest of them just have the regular ending.
Because it's like, what's stopping you from like beating Vectorman and then telling your friend about it? I mean, like, yeah, just call this phone number. Like, they'll definitely just give you some.
Dude, that would be amazing. If the first person that got it, it's like, starts giving the phone number to all his buddies. It's like, yeah, all the prizes were won in this one little town.
Yeah, it's like one of those things you would hear on the playground. It's just like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever you say, man. Sure, there's a phone number where I could get free Sega stuff. Okay, sure.
Well, not only that, but could you imagine, like, you somehow got one of the few hundred copies of it, had it, and you managed to beat the game, and I struggled to beat this game, but you managed to beat it. Its phone number flashes on the screen. Could you imagine, like, maybe the phone number going away by the time you got a pen and a piece of paper to write it down?
Yeah. Yeah, that would really suck. I guess I'll wrap up my take on the soundtrack here and the sound effects. The sound effects, they're fine. They lend to that like energetic vibe that the game gives off. You mentioned the voice samples. Yeah, it's cool it's in here. I think it kind of suffers from that Sega, I think I called it like the Sega gargle, where you can't really quite understand what Vectorman is saying half the time. But, you know, mentioned Earthworm Jim earlier. I'm glad he's not as talkative as Earthworm Jim. Like they definitely showed some restraint here. And like just going, so there's some notes I had here specifically about the graphics that I do want to bring up very quickly. Visually, like I said, I thought this game was going to be a train wreck. I did not think like these pseudo 3D graphics were going to hold up. But not only do I think they hold up, especially in regards to how incredibly well the game runs, but like there's just so many small details, and especially like I mentioned the backgrounds, and you even mentioned the backgrounds too, with like things flying in the wind and stuff, and there's just like these very subtle animations on Vectorman himself, and just the way he falls, his fall animation, his jump animation, the way he kind of flails around, and then you have like this almost like pseudo lighting engine almost, where there's like whenever Vectorman fires off his gun, there's like a flash of light on the front of his sprite. You also have like these sunburst lighting effects when you move around some of the levels, and the parallax scrolling in this game is so good. This game is gorgeous. There's like this one level in particular, I think it's maybe like the third or fourth level, which again has like some very good lighting effects. And there's like this metal, you're like in a cavern, and there's like these metal frames all over the place. There's like technology that's embedded in rock. It's very cool looking aesthetically, but then you've also got like water falling through the cracks in this cave and just like dripping around all over the place. And it just looks amazing. I was really, really taken aback by how well this game holds up graphically. Like this, Donkey Kong Country doesn't hold a candle to this.
The main character has a lot more life to him than Donkey Kong does. Like the fact that whenever you run up against the wall, he'll like kind of roll his eyes a little bit and throw his hand up on his head. Mm-hmm. There's some scenes, depending on what happens whenever you end the stage, he'll spread his arms out celebrating, and then one of the balls that makes up his body falls down, and he like tucks it back up. Just small stuff like that. I'll definitely give that over Donkey Kong Country too. That the main character feels more alive.
Yeah. There's definitely like a lot of little, and like even like you mentioned about like the lives in the bottom of the bottom of the screen, kind of dancing around and moving around and stuff. Like there's a lot of like subtle little animations that like give a lot of character. Like it's just amazing. Like when you talk about Vectorman himself, and he's made up of 6 or 7 of like these fake 3D balls, and that's like it, but it's oddly expressive.
Well, do you want me to blow your mind here?
Sure.
It's more than 6 or 7. Looking at some development stuff in the game, he is made up of 23 sprites.
It's insane. And I know they had to do like some like really weird, I don't know the technical mumbo jumbo for what exactly they did, but they had to do a lot of work to make him move as smooth as he does in order to get like the frame rate right and everything.
Yeah, he looks really, really good. Just overall, the game has solid presentation for what's there. I keep coming back to, I wish there were more of it. But again, for what's there, it is really, really good. As you said earlier, you prefer this over Donkey Kong Country. Do I still prefer Donkey Kong Country? Yes, but if we're talking about in the release window, this versus Donkey Kong Country 2, I would choose this game over DKC 2.
Are you ready to cap this thing off? I mean, we are quickly approaching 2 hours here, which I did not think was going to happen on a Vectorman episode, but here we are. This is the portion of the show in which we will summarize our thoughts and decide if this game holds up, if we would possibly recommend anybody checking it out currently in 2025. I've literally been at a loss for words. Yeah, I've been fumbling this entire episode. Leathco, I'm going to start with you, man. Would you recommend this game?
Absolutely. I would put it in the top 5, to where if you could only choose 5 Genesis titles, this game has to be in those top 5. I mean, there's nothing more to say. It's a fantastic game.
Hey, short and brief. Perfect. I agree. There's something I thought about when I was playing this game. And it's not my own thought. It's just a sentiment that I share. And I don't know the quote verbatim, so I'm probably going to get this wrong. But Chris over at Retro Hangover has said a couple of times that there almost seems to have been altering of facts when it comes to content creators and video game history. And it is mostly an altering of facts that favor Nintendo, and Nintendo being a dominant force and getting accolades for its innovative achievements and the things that they've done, which I don't want to take away from them. They certainly did do some of the things that people talk about. But in hindsight, when you look at the actual history of what was happening back then, all along there were other companies like Sega doing the same thing before or even alongside Nintendo, and in some cases doing it better. I'm going to save a longer rant here. I'm going to save a longer rant, and maybe you can make a full episode out of it in the future. I just, again, when I think of my time playing Vectorman now and knowing that it was made in response to Donkey Kong Country, I don't think there is any competition or comparisons to be made to Donkey Kong Country. I said earlier, I played all 3 of those Donkey Kong Country games back to back last year. And Those are like the most cookie cutter, like run of the mill platformers. And I think they control like dog. And it's Nintendo. It's coming from Nintendo. It's the same company that made Mario and created the foundation for what a good platformer feels like mechanically. And they allowed Rare to make a subpar product only because they could make the game look nice. And those games suck. The Donkey Kong Country games, in comparison to Vectorman, they suck. And even though we know Vectorman is a direct response to that franchise, this feels like there's something else to it. It feels like there is more heart put into it than when I said, oh, it just feels like a bunch of guys with suits sat down in a room somewhere and were like, we need something out by holiday. Otherwise, Nintendo's going to beat us. And which part of that story is true. But Blue Sky had proven that they could be a strong asset for Sega. And they set out to do it again by creating their own IP here. You know, Donkey Kong Country, it's not the benchmark of 16-bit gaming. It's Gunstar Heroes. But Vectorman carried on that torch. Do I think Vectorman suffers from like old school game design? Like not having continues sucks. We talked about the palette swap of the first stage being reused. And of course, they wanted to get as much out of that asset as they could to kind of fill in like a video game, you know, to make it worth its money, right? Vectorman has its flaws. In my opinion, its flaws are no worse than something like Shinobi or Rocket Knight Adventures, or even Kid Chameleon, which is a game that I hate. But that's a game I know people love. Vectorman does get a little repetitive, I guess. They could have cleaned up some of these stages. But do I think you have to finish a game like Vectorman to like really enjoy it and like to get what it's putting out? It might be a weird thing to say. I don't think you have to. Anyway, I'm ranting at this point, which is why I wanted you to go first. I completely agree with you. This might be one of the best Genesis games. I feel like, in a way, I have righted a wrong that I made 30 years ago when I dismissed this game. I think if you want to see the Genesis doing what it does best, both gameplay-wise, graphically, and sonically, you should play Vectorman. I definitely think it's underrated.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game. And like I said, I do prefer the original Donkey Kong Country, but I'm also the type of guy to tell you, maybe it's nostalgic because I played it so much, I don't know. I can definitely tell you I prefer Vectorman over the second and third Donkey Kong Country games, though.
Well, with the way I am just undercutting Donkey Kong Country at this point, I know exactly who I'm going to call when I have to talk about that game. So get ready, buddy.
But like I said, I enjoyed the first one quite a bit, even though I'll even say that Vectorman does have more varied gameplay than Donkey Kong Country by far. And before we finish, I will say, as far as Blue Sky goes, they killed it with this game because the Genesis can only throw out 64 colors per screen. The Super Nintendo can throw out 256, I believe, per screen. So they literally did more with hardware that would struggle a bit more.
It's amazing on all fronts. It's amazing that any video game comes out, and for this to come out, especially so late in the Genesis lifespan, and the fact they're thinking about frame rate is wild. I think that is also why this holds up so well, is because it's so clean, you know? Like, with that, I mean, this has been a long one, man. Thanks for coming on, coming to hang out and talk about Vectorman.
Hey, I appreciate you inviting me on.
Absolutely. The door is always open. I'm not joking. I might give you the call when I come across Donkey Kong Country.
Hey, go for it. I mean, someone's got to give it some positive words, right?
Yeah. So with that said, this is your spotlight right now. Shill what you got to shill.
Well, if you're looking for a podcast that has significantly lower production values, be sure to check out Afterglow. I do things kind of off the cuff on my show, cover one game an episode. I'll go over my personal memories of it. I might go into the gameplay some and the maybe some modern thoughts on it, but I try to mostly stick with my memories of it. And then I'll also play some music from the game because I'm a huge music fan. I think music's important in anything that we do. So, of course, even in video games, I'm going to give it its spotlight. I am also a co-host on the Grimglow podcast, where we check out old school hardware. Our first episode will hopefully be launching pretty soon. Grim's in the middle of wrapping all that up as we speak. He does the editing on that one, so that one will probably be a smoother listening experience in mind.
Yeah, you might be joking about like the production and everything like that, but I really do appreciate and like the stuff that you do on Afterglow, because again, if anybody's listening to Main Quest, the things that you're doing over there is like kind of the same thing. You're going to like the Afterglow podcast. And if you need a jumping off point, again, I was on the Final Fantasy VII episode, so you're going to go listen to that. And I look forward to what you and Grim have going on when that podcast launches.
It should be some good stuff, although I have struggled a bit on this episode to make sure I don't use any uncouth language. That way you don't have to edit nearly as much.
It's a lot easier than you would think. I told myself I'm going to work on it, and it never works.
Well, I'm greatly looking forward to hearing what sounds that you use for the censored gang.
Yeah, all the links to Afterglow and the Grimglow podcast are, well, if it's out by then, will be in the show notes.
Of course, be sure if you're searching for it yourself, look for the one about retro games and not the one about other stuff that shall remain unnamed.
Oh, no. Yeah, we don't
Let's say there are many shows called Afterglow, and most of them focus on something other than gaming.
Okay, so it's very important to go in the show notes and check out the Afterglow podcast. I don't want free advertising for anybody else. So not on this show. They don't get it. Next time on the program, I am settling a debate that has plagued the retro community for the past 30 years. It's over, folks. It's done. We're settling it. And I'm going to be joined by the only man that can help me do it, is Ryan of Listoff and my cohort on High Score Cinema. I swear that podcast is going to come back. I'm working on it. I'm getting there. He's coming back. He's joining me to talk about Disney's Aladdin. So until then, take care of yourselves and always remember, it's okay to like a video game.